we walk into this long conference table, and this colonel was sitting at the table, and he's like, "We have a problem." And I was like, I thought we were in trouble. And he was like, "We have 50 Marines who are about ready to get discharged." He's like, "They're overweight." He's like, "Do you think your meals can help us?" And I was like, "Of course."
Wow.
You know?
Okay.
So again, if you're an entrepreneur, say yes and then figure out,
Figure
like,
it out
leap
after. Yep.
and throw your parachute, however.
Welcome to Whisking It All with your host, Angela Esposito, co-founder of Whisk.ai, a food and beverage intelligence platform. We're going to be interviewing hospitality professionals around the world to really understand how they do what they do.
Welcome to another episode of Whisking It All. We are joined today by Evonne Varady, founder or co-founder at cleaneatz.com. That's Clean Eatz, EATZ or Z, depending if you're Canadian or American.com. Evonne, thank you for being here today.
Thank you for inviting me.
Of course. I was super interested to kind of hear about your journey because I see that you guys are more than 85 locations. But before jumping into all that stuff, I'd love to maybe just get an overview of who is Evonne? How did you even get started in this space? And then hear a bit about like the inception of Clean Eatz.
Yeah, so I kind of have a crazy story. I started, I guess I always have had like a fitness, like passion with me. And so I thought that I was going to go into physical therapy back in my high school years. I'm from a farm. I'm a farm kid. So my parents, they're in their 70s, still live on the farm, still raise their own beef. Still, my mom uses a Ringer wash machine. I don't know if you remember the Ringer wash machines.
Tell me what that is. Don't tell me.
So it's like the whole manual wash machines that you like do the thing, and then you have to hand put your things into the ringer, and you have the wash tubs. So
got it.
Hang them on the clothesline. Yeah. So my mom still uses that because she doesn't believe in sometimes commercial wash machines can do the same job. So
that's awesome.
I mean, now looking back on things, like I was like, we were poor, so obviously I didn't think about that as a kid. So I look back and I always think that I was an entrepreneur because like I gathered walnuts from our walnuts trees and shucked them during the winter and sold walnuts and picked up cans in the ditches on my bike and did that. And I don't know if you guys know mushroom hunting, but like the legal mushrooms, like that grows in the ground.
Right.
Stuff, and would go mushroom hunting in the spring and sell them to people at the bar and stuff. So I look back on it now and I was like, oh, that I always was maybe on this path. But I was starting in health and fitness. I really wanted to be a physical therapy. And that was the year that they changed it to a 5-year master's degree. And so we went toward the school. And then when we sat down with the counselor and my mom got the bill of what it was going to cost for one semester, she was just like, hey, we can't do this. So she signed me up for x-ray school. So I became an x-ray tech, and I still kind of did like my little fitness stuff on the side. Long story short, I got melanoma. By like just a fluke finding it. So they end up cutting the melanoma off the back of my leg. And 6 months later, I was with an ultrasound student who needed to scan, and I had some like lumps in my groin. So I was like, here, scan these. And they thought that was lymphoma. So I was like, I got to quit doing all these free scans. So went into surgery. The physician or the surgeon there gave me like the three outcomes, like either you're a goner because this is lymphoma. We're going to take the lymph nodes out and you're going to be like probably lymphedema in your legs, or you're going to be fine. And I was like, okay. So when I came out, I didn't see, like I was expecting tubes in my legs and stuff, and there wasn't any, right? So every time I'm like, oh, I'm a goner. And he came, he's like, I don't know what angel's on your side. He's like, but you are clear of everything. And I was like, okay. So he was like, you just got a second chance to life. You better go live it. And at the time I was kind of doing a little bit of kickboxing instructing on the side. And I had a group of women in my fitness class that they just could not lose weight. And so I set them down one day and I was like, why can you not lose weight? In small town, population of 600 people, we had a McDonald's on one corner and a Hardee's on the other corner. So as soon as they left my fitness classes, you know where they were. They were right through the drive-thru. And so, I mean, I know it's cliche and all, but you just can't out-exercise a bad diet, right? So I set them down on a Saturday in the room, and I said, at this time I was kind of like meal prepping, which was back in 2006. So yeah, no one even heard of meal plan companies back then. So I was like, hey, ladies, if I like make your meals like I'm eating, would you guys do a 6-week program with me? And they're like, sure. So at the end of 6 weeks, all of my ladies had lost weight. And before I knew, this redhead in town was meal prepping and training people at this local gym, which it wasn't even a gym. It was our hospital who we used their physical therapy department to train in. So that's how it was just old school back then. So yeah, so when I got all this second chance of life, I was like, man, I just really want this meal prep thing to take off. So I walked into my x-ray job and I quit. I ended up getting divorced because I was not happy. I had 2 daughters at the time. And I was like, what am I going to do? So my mom's like, do you have a theory? And I was like, I think I'm going to take this meal prepping business to like and open a cafe. And she's like, okay, they all thought I was crazy. They're like, you left a pension, you left insurance, you left a steady income. Like, what are you thinking? And I was like, I don't know. And I think the best entrepreneurs is like, you're willing to leave everything behind and go pursue your future, you know? No plan B in the works, always plan A.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so that's kind of how we got, I ended up getting a lease on this building, which I had no clue how to run a restaurant. I thought a refrigerator.
So before that, I got to ask you this. Before that, you never worked at a restaurant?
Just like, I was like a waitress at Pizza Man, you know, but nothing.
Little to no experience. So just like, I'm going to open this. That's impressive to jump in, right? Like with both feet, because you didn't have any experience. And so what did life look like then? You're like, okay, mom's like, you're crazy. Everyone's kind of like, what are you doing? So you kind of get this lease and what happens next?
So I couldn't afford the lease and my home at the same time. So there was like a little closet in the back of this restaurant. It wasn't even a restaurant. I was converting a Blockbuster into a restaurant. So it had nothing. And so there was a little closet in the back and I was like, okay, this is where I'm living. So I made me a little living quarters in the restaurant. I had positioned the restaurant right across from a gym. And I was like, okay, so I can sleep here. I have food because obviously it's a cafe and I can go across the street, work out and shower. And so that's what I did for 2 years. Back in the day. I loved it. I mean, looking back, obviously it makes a great story now, but I really did love it because I, have been in the divorce and, I got to see the kids, like it was obviously split custody. So when I didn't have them, like what else to do but throw yourself into work. So it was great. So I was there 24/7. So it was awesome.
That's crazy. What a story. And let me ask you this. At that time, was the name already Clean Eatz or was that something that developed later?
No. So my 6-year-old daughter came up with the name. It was called Low Cal Cafe, which was terrible because it looked like, one, it made us think that no one was going to get full because we were such low calorie, right? And then for the people who didn't understand diet world and it's low calorie, they thought it was local cafe. So it was a terrible name. And then I met my husband across at the gym. And then he came on board when the housing market crashed. And then we moved out here to Wilmington, North Carolina.
Wow. And so I got to ask you, so early days, you're kind of running this cafe. What did operations look like back then, right? So you're sleeping there, you're all in, you're cooking. How are you getting customers? I mean, obviously very smart that you moved in front of a gym. What were you doing? Because I'd love to hear like tactics in the early days, right? Like doing what you got to do to like, how tactics evolve. But yeah, I'd love to hear from you.
No Facebook, email had just started that. And so I was boots to the ground. I was old school, man. So I set up anything that had a gym, any event that we had. I was handing out the samples. Nice. I was at all the bodybuilding fitness things. I was knocking on doors. I was passing out flyers. So it was back to the boots on the ground.
That's awesome. And at that time, was it mainly like people would come in and pick up or dine in, or was it all delivery too? Like, cause I'm imagining in the early days, like how you delivering. So like, what did it look like back then?
Yeah, no delivery, no DoorDash, none of that stuff. I was texting. Remember flip phones? So
Yep.
I
Yep.
had started gathering phone numbers, like cell phone numbers, and so I would
Smart.
text out our menu. Like
Mm.
A, B, C. So it would take me all Sunday to do that. And then how I collected my orders was that they would text me back with what they wanted. So I always laugh and I'm like, it was the stick figure method, like
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
one, two,
Oh
three,
man.
slash.
Yeah, yeah, especially like with the original cell phones where you had to click the key 3 times, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Like it was so long to write a sentence. That must have been so painful to write a meal plan with those keyboards.
And they only had max of 10 digits on there. So, I had like at
Wow.
that point, like 40 some people. So I had to send it out four and there was no copy and paste back in the
Oh
day.
my
So
God.
yeah, it
Wow.
was
Talk about the grind.
the grind.
Wow. Okay. And so for people listening, obviously I checked out Clean Eats and I know what it is, but for people who don't know, what is Clean Eats today? How many locations do you guys have? I know, and we'll back kind of backtrack, but like, what does Clean Eats look like today?
So we are, as of today, we have 98 locations open.
Oh,
We have
nice.
87 in the pipeline. We're on track to usually open anywhere from 25 to 30 locations each year. Is how we
Wow.
kind of got it all stacked up. Yeah. So Clean Eats, I know everyone is like tired of hearing this meal plan game, the home or the Blue Apron and
Right.
HelloFresh and that kind of stuff. So we are a brick and mortar. We look like a regular restaurant. You can walk in, order off the menu fresh food. But our jam is usually these prepackaged meals. So
Got it.
we do 6 fresh meals each week. And then we have our grab and go section. We do our marketplace, which has really gotten into development here recently. And then obviously the traditional catering.
Wow. And right now, like, are you guys in certain geographical areas like that are strong, or pretty much across? I mean, based on your website, I saw quite a few states, but what do you see kind of going on? Do you see any trends in certain states where you guys are pretty heavy?
We're really heavy east of the Mississippi because obviously when we first franchised, there was just me and my husband. And so we knew that we were like a 3-man team. So we did a lot of, we filled out like North Carolina first, South Carolina, the
Mm,
Georgia, and then started going into like the Florida. And then in 2020, I think it was, we hired Brand One, who's our franchise developers, and we started going across that Mississippi over into the West Coast area.
wow.
So I think currently we're in 26 states right now.
Wow.
I might be 27, I might be off on that. But it's really when we get into a new state, usually our growth strategy is to try to get like kind of like for brand awareness, for your distribution of your food, and even your ops, develop or just in your ops team out there. We try to kind of get it to where we at least have 3 or 4 cafes getting ready to open in that area.
Got it. And when you look at areas, just totally out of curiosity, do you guys still stick to what you did back in the day of trying to open near gyms, or is that model kind of different now? What does that look like?
It's always good because that's usually our like-minded people are usually across
Right.
the street from us in a gym. If not, then we try to kind of go around a military base or
Mm,
a university. We try to stay away from like those downtown populations. You kind of want to be in the area where people are coming back home because they usually pick up their meals on their way home. Hospitals are really great for us. But yeah,
that
I
makes
mean,
sense.
most of the time there's usually a gym around us at some like within 3 miles. So
Right. That makes a ton of sense. And I'd love to hear, because a lot of our listeners, right, they either own restaurants, manage some groups, some franchises, and so like, pretty big jump from, local cafe to Clean Eats, 97 or 98 locations.
98.
So like pretty big jump. So I'd love to hear, just even share some kind of nuggets and learnings. Like, what did the early days look like in terms of, hey, we got this one location, grinding, doing what I got to do to make it work, to then saying, let's open a second or third, fourth, whatever it is, right?
Yeah. So we had, in the beginning, before we franchised, we had totally thought we were going to open a second location. And so when we went in to design our dream cafe, the guy behind the counter, he's like, like rumor has it through town, you all should be franchising. And we're like, we're gym rat. Like, I had no idea. I'm an x-ray tech. He's a carpenter. We just go to the gym to do that. We had no idea what franchising was. And so we started researching it a little bit, and we're like, yeah, maybe we will do this, because our mission has always been to impact as many people as possible. And we're like, we ain't going to do this, by ourselves. We need an army of this. And so we end up franchising, and the guys who franchise us are like, don't worry. Like, usually it takes like 6 to 8 months to sell a unit. So you guys are good. We'll work on operations. We'll do all this. And we're like, okay. And then 6 of our customers who were coming in our cafes decided to buy a franchise all at one time. So we really had to get everything in order fast. And if I don't know, I mean, people have strengths in operations, people have strengths in creativity, and I could operate the cafe, but it was so hard for me to get everything out of my head onto paper and then make everyone understand what I was trying to talk about, So that was a really big learning curve for us. We joke with the 6 owners who are still in our system, because I would send out text messages with like the new recipes for the week, your operation manual, I mean, I'm like sitting here texting this, like we had no clue, and thank God they were so, forgiving with us, and they worked with us, and they all, like, one of them was a cable guy, so he had no idea what franchising was. So all 6 of them had no idea what franchising even meant either. So we were all kind of learning together with this.
I mean, that's impressive, because you're like, that they started so early and that they're still around is already, in the restaurant world in general, like, you're lucky if you pass like year 2 kind of thing. So just that in itself is something. And the other thing that kind of caught my attention is, usually, at least on the more restaurant side, it's like you need a couple locations to kind of prove out the numbers and repeatability. And then there's the world of then trying to franchise it. So it's kind of crazy that you're able to do it with one, which leads me to my question. How good were the numbers, let's say, in terms of percentages, in terms of your bottom line, and looking at, your cost of goods sold and labor costs, were things that solid, let's say, at one location, that it made it a no-brainer for the other 6, or was it more like they believed in the vision and the numbers were secondary kind of thing?
Yeah, we didn't even do a P&L.
Oh my God. Okay.
3 years.
Okay.
So when these guys came into franchises, that was the first P&L that we had ever done. I mean, obviously we did kind of at the end of the years, with the tax guy.
Right.
And he would be like, oh yeah, so we were living our dream. And I know that sounds, for everyone who's out there with number guys, I know that just makes you cringe, but, we were just talking about this the other night, because some of our owners are so down to the penny. And I'm just like, Is your bank account growing? And they're like, well, yeah. I'm like, that's all you got to worry about, man. We can quit dissecting every single ingredient. It's about the bigger picture here. And so we kind of laughed about it yesterday, because I'm like, as long as we had 20,000 in our account, and then we're like, okay, well, let's get 25, let's get 30, And so that's how we did our success. And, at the end, that bank account was getting up to 80, and the tax bills started coming in a little bit higher because we were making more money. And, so then when they franchised us, they deep dived into everything, so that was kind of, and I don't even know what the numbers were at that time. I'm the food girl. So my husband's the black and white, number.
Yeah. No worries.
A lot of the ones that are still there, one of our owners in Raleigh, North Carolina, I mean, he just built over a $2 million home and moved in last week. So yes, I think the number, I don't want to, but something must be working. So
right. And I guess what were some lessons you learned, right? Because obviously it's amazing to learn from your own lessons. I made so many mistakes in my business in the software hospitality space, and you're always learning, but it's also nice sometimes to learn from other people's mistakes if you can. And so, I'm sure you learned a lot, as you mentioned, probably about, SOPs and kind of documenting things once you were more than just a, one-man show, so to speak. What were some kind of hurdles you got from like, going to those initial, let's call it 5 locations, to then scaling to that next level, whether that's 15 or 20? Like, what are some other hurdles that you kind of had to learn along the way?
I would say the biggest thing, and still to this day, is communication. It's that's probably my weakest link is communication. I think I have a lot of conversations in my head, which don't like project sometimes to, I think that I have said it, that I haven't, and it was consistency across the brand. So that all of our meals look the same. That drove me crazy forever. And we really have a good like system right now. So I could pretty much say probably like 96% of all of our meals they taste the same, look the same, and all that, just from the years of development, those recipes and the pictures. And I always use the peanut butter and jelly method. I don't know if you've ever heard that, where the kids are trying to make a peanut butter and jelly with the dad, and all the instructions are just crazy. So check that out if you're having problems with communication in your systems. Operations, I would say another one is we all come in with egos and we think our way is the best. And I did it, this is the way I've done it and nothing wants to change. And that was a really big thing for me because obviously I'm redheaded and I do have the temper with the red hair. I was known for flipping some tables in the days.
Oh my God.
But that's having owners and having them invest their money and being able to let your ego come down and listen to their suggestions, because, that's the only way you get better, is taking feedback, was a huge, huge thing.
That's crazy. And, obviously Whisk on the Whisk side, like we help mainly restaurants, but hotels, bars, that kind of stuff too. But really with all the stuff they kind of hate, which is kind of like what you mentioned, like, I don't like those things. And for us, our kind of whole mission was like, man, so many people get into the hospitality space for a lot of different reasons, but the culinary experience or the guest experience, and then they kind of realize there's all these other things they need to do, like, oh man, Excel and P&Ls, like you mentioned, and like, my labor costs, my cost of goods sold, market, like so many, like, and so we're like, okay, how can we help take some of that off their plate? And so I'd love to hear from you in scaling. I imagine, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I imagine you obviously probably had to start leaning in on some technology. So I'd love to maybe like talk through maybe some of like your tech stack, like, like what were some of the important things in general when it came to technology and scaling, whether it could be marketing, it could be back of house, front of house, POS. I'd love to hear just from your point of view, like how did you see that evolution and what were things that made a real big difference from going to, 0 to 98 locations?
I would say the biggest part that, and we're kind of going through the transition, hopefully it's going to be done within the next 30 days, was POS. It was, and I'm not saying this to like, but a lockdown POS system is like the best way to collect data. And we were using another one where they could just add in all their own buttons. They could, make like every cafe probably had like, there are like 10 things that they made that weren't on our menu, or, and then when they post it, everyone else. So I would say the biggest piece would be to have a POS that you can collect the data and lock it down for your menu pricing, your recipes and all that. And then on the flip side of that we use Restaurant 365 for your food inventory. We're kind of complicated more than other restaurants only because we change our menu every week. And then we have our grab and go selections, which have over 300 recipes in them. So to get those accurate food costs in there, because an owner might say, I'm running 45% food cost, And I was like, I've been to your restaurant, man. You got that back storage and you have a lot of inventory in there. So it was kind of good to see, that made a huge thing because some of them hoard. Like we have meal plan containers. I know I can name you 6 franchise owners right now that probably have a garage full of meal plan containers because at one point we ran out, 4 years ago. And so now they hoard, a pallet of them.
Right.
And I was like, so you have that. And so that was a really good. As far as like marketing, man, I feel like every time you figure this one out, it changes again, right? So
Right.
We use Marvia. We support them with all the graphics. Again, our menu changes every week. So that's 6 new pictures that got to be uploaded, the meal plans, emails, and all that. So that was a really good thing for us, is that we could, with that, the owners can go in there and grab their libraries and do that. Communication, I just said, Frame Connect was a good one for that. That way we can all share the same post, that, it gives them a platform to talk to each other on that. We put tickets in because, it's food. Nothing's perfect in this world. So they can put their tickets in. We can answer the ticket. We can collaborate with those tickets to see if this is a problem that keeps going, that we need to figure this one out. I would say those are probably, try and think.
Those are great.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. And the POS, I think that probably will resonate with a lot of our audience, because it's, when you have one place, two places, pick your preference. And I'll be honest, we integrate with 60 point of sale. So I hear the best and the worst of the same thing. So it's come to a point where it's like, there's a lot of personal preferences where someone will say this X POS is my favorite, and then someone else will be like, oh, that same POS is the worst POS I've ever used. So really it's a preference. But to your point, once you do start scaling, we see like there's less options, because you do need that POS that can have like the centralization, and you want the POS items to be the same so you can analyze the data, and not everyone to have different modifiers and different SKUs, and then it's so hard. So that kind of stuff of being able to centralize and push and control pricing like starts becoming quite important. So that makes a ton of sense. The back of house, same thing. We're somewhat similar to Restaurant 365. They're a little more on the accounting side. We're a little more on the operational side, but same type of thing, like back of house, inventory, ordering. And I don't care what people use at the end of the day, but I just tell people it's important. Like, use something, because that stuff is hard. Again, you can get away when you're one location and you're kind of there all the time. Sure, you can figure it out on Excel, but at a certain point, Excel starts taking too much time, because you're spending more time figuring out where the formula broke than getting the results you need. So there's that kind of like threshold of like, Excel is good to a certain extent, but it's funny. It's great to hear like your tech stack, because I've been talking to more restaurants and I've been trying to bring it up more on the podcast, just to kind of, it's great just to hear how like restaurants and hospitality, folks in general, just kind of adapting and leveraging. I'd love to hear, what about on the delivery side? You guys do delivery? Are you just using the third-party deliveries? Do you guys do online ordering? I'm assuming you do to somewhat. I'd love to hear about that side of things.
We do online ordering. We don't personally deliver to anybody. I know there's a lot of companies out there, the meal plan game, that do deliver. Right. It is just a nightmare. We pilot program that with like 3 locations, and it was just, no one knows.
It's a hard problem to solve.
Easy, but you got someone who doesn't use that door and they didn't get their meals, or the neighbor's dog ate the meals, or so it was a headache. We did it for almost a year, and I'm like, no, we're done. And then just the amount of stuff that you have to use with your refrigerated meals, like the ice packs, you don't think about the foam that goes in there, so we do use, I think, all the third-party deliveries, the DoorDash, the Uber Eats, and that, people, we always like joke, we're like, oh, we're a healthy concept. You guys should come through, our doors, get out and get your steps in, we kind of say that.
Right.
But yeah, it's convenience. So, but
no, it makes sense. No, I was just gonna say it makes sense. It makes sense, because the truth is, like, and I think there's a lesson there. Like, sometimes you need to try things as an entrepreneur, try things, and there's nothing wrong with failing, but like, try, see, reiterate. And then like, if it's not working, the costs don't make sense, that like, there's nothing wrong with like canning an idea. Right. And in your case, yeah, like it is a logistical nightmare. There's a reason like Uber, I think to this day, is like still not profitable. Like, it's hard. It's a hard problem to solve. And I think there's a lesson there in terms of like sticking to what you're good at, not being scared to try new things, but also not letting your ego get in the way and saying, hey, this was kind of like, we tried it, it's not working, let's go back. Are there other things you could maybe share with our audience, of things you've tried that maybe you're like, not the result I was hoping for?
Oh yeah, there's a whole list. I don't think we have enough time on this podcast. Yeah, supply chain was another big one. How do you get logo products every which way? And we've gone through a couple of logistic nightmares with logo product. Everyone loves logo products, but if you're going from like 50 to 100, I think that's great. I know that below that, there's so much SKUs, there's so much money that's tied up into that then you have to pay the cost of someone to house it and deliver it, and
Mm.
shipping costs have gone up sky high. So it's really just a break even on that. Try and think what else. We've had numerous recipes, obviously, like we got into the bar business about 4 years ago, and
Okay.
we were so excited about them. We had this big convention. We introduced these brand new bars that were like, packaged with our logos. And then about 4 weeks later, people opened them and they were full of mold. I'm sorry.
No.
So vetting your distributors or your
Wow.
manufacturers is another huge lesson that we learned. I want to say employees, like that's always a lesson in itself.
That's a tough
like
one, yeah.
when to build, who you build, personalities. We're kind of like a eccentric group because, we work out, we eat healthy. So that doesn't fit in your food industry norm of operators,
Right.
Normally they're coming from late hours, greasy
Right.
food, alcohol. So they're just a little unhealthy-ish. But we
Yeah.
have huge success stories with the ones who did come to us, their weight loss journeys and that kind of stuff. Trying to think what else we've done. Operational, menus, fails.
I mean, that's a tough one. I mean, it might give hope to like all our listeners because like the fact that typically our clients will change seasonally, maybe specials once a week, so one item a week. That's a tough one. Like you guys, like I'm even processing that. Like, man, that's a lot of work. Like every week, a new item, a new menu is that's a tough one. But then again, it's a bit of the flip side of that is it's a bit of a barrier to entry because it's hard to do what you're doing. So as much as like on one side that's not good, but on the flip side, it's hard for people to copy that.
Yeah, our food distributor loves us because I think we did like an audit and there was like over 1,000 ingredients. I'm just saying, like, just say your broccoli, your green beans, or just your vegetables. Like we use every vegetable you can think of. Where like one restaurant
Wow.
usually just does broccoli or something, or French fries.
Right.
And we use sweet potato waffle fries, sweet potato. You can put sweet potatoes every which way that we do. So it's we've had I think that in the beginning they wanted to put us in a box, and so you really have to hold on to your integrity and be like, no, this is what makes us different, this is what we want to do. And then when we went through COVID and everyone was kind of shutting their doors and our numbers were going up because we were already a delivery, like not delivery, but a carry out service with meals.
Yeah.
They came to realize, they're like, hey, yeah, we're sorry, like we understand now. And I was like, okay. So
Right.
it was.
That's crazy. And it's funny because I think about like the journey that you're going through of like, I think you said 25, 30-ish locations a year. What can, if you were to pitch to maybe, people listening that say, okay, what would want to make someone, let's say, get involved with this versus maybe another type of franchise? So in other words, who would be maybe an ideal, franchisee for you?
Our best owner operators are, believe it or not, are couples. We have a lot of married couples in our system, and most, either one or both, have a fitness background. And I'm not saying that's it, but I think if you're in the fitness world, we are a people business. Anybody can make chicken broccoli rice is what I always say, but it's what that customer service is and your relationship and your loyalty with that customer. So if you don't like helping people, then we can't. If you come to a Discovery Day on us and you're like, yeah, I love your 5 revenues. Like, I'm just like, I can't wait to make money. And I'm like, no, you're not the right person for us. So it's usually, I would say probably 99% of our owners have some sort of weight loss journey or some sort of something that they've lost weight and they just want to help their community. Like that's what we hear all the time. So we've had an owner who's down like 160 pounds. We had another one who he's down 120 pounds. We've had, try and think, just, it's like all those stories. So our culture is really important to us with that.
That's amazing. And I think that's something that's interesting about your specific kind of world is like, and I mean, really it should be in more places, but kind of marrying the two sides of like, business, making money, but also kind of enjoying what I'm doing and like living a healthy lifestyle. Because there's a lot of ways to make money, but some will take years off your life kind of thing, and high stress. And not to say like any business has a certain level of high stress, don't get me wrong, but to hear people losing weight, living a healthier lifestyle, and like, well, you know, being able to own and operate a successful business sounds pretty enticing. I'd love to hear, like, you know, you spoke about, you know, a lot of couples. That was actually a question I wanted to ask you, right? Because a lot of people will say, you maybe sometimes hear, you know, like, don't go into business with family. Or so I'd love to hear your take on how has it been. It could, I know, it could be a blessing, could be a curse, but I'd love to hear your experience and what you say to like working with your, you know, partner, or working with your husband. How has that been, and any lessons you can share?
Yeah, it's he like, yes, we work great together. And I think the reason why, because we're such yin and yang, you know, like I'm rainbows and unicorns. Or I always say he's black and white and I'm 50 shades of gray. So I always, and that you laugh because you like, you know exactly what type of people we
Yeah.
are. Like
Yeah.
I'm over
Yeah.
here looking at butterflies and unicorns, and he's like systems, procedures, like, you know,
Yeah.
his commas or whatever. I'm like, whatever, you know, I'll text
Yeah.
him.
Yeah.
But I think two reasons why couples work together, because if you know anything about the restaurant business, you know that this is, I always say it's a baby. Like you are up with it and it's vomiting on you 365 days, 7 days a week, like 24
Right.
hours a day. And it's good to have both of those people to go in with you, because then you don't catch heat when you go home and, you know, an employee called in sick and you got to come in. Like, no, you both want to be there, you know? So I feel like time value, it's great because you're both invested in it. And then I think the things that go wrong is when that you both have the same personality. So if you both want to be in the back of the house, there's usually always, our couples are usually, one wants to not be in front of people and the other one is a total people person. So one does all the operations, one does like kind of the customer service. And that's how me and Don were. I cooked because I love to cook, and he did all of our front of the house customer, you know, interactions. So yeah, but it's the couples who want control, like they are both control freaks.
Similar,
does not
right?
work.
That's interesting. And obviously, like, you have, you know, there's weight to what you're saying, because you've been at this since 2011, I believe.
Yeah, 2010.
So, you know, 2010, there you go. So, you know, 13 years, what is that? Yeah, 13 years, almost 14 years. So like, it's not just like, you know, we're not hearing someone who's been in business with their husband for 6 months saying how you guys work well. It's, you know, 10 plus years, over a decade of doing this, and, you know, 98 locations, and building a real business, a real system. And I think there's probably a lesson there to even not only shed it to, you know, couples, but I guess I would even say partnerships in general, because when you were talking about that, it was making me just think in general, like a good partner usually is pretty complementary, right? Like there's similar skills in the sense of like maybe, you know, intelligent, this, that, but like it makes sense. Like usually a good partner is complement to you. If you both have the same skills, it's kind of, there's a redundancy there of like, oh, we're both really strong in marketing. Well, who's doing finance? Who's doing operation, right?
You're gonna fight.
So that's a good tip. That's a really good tip. That's awesome. And what's next? What's next for you guys? It sounds like you guys are on a good trajectory. You're impacting lives, not just financially, like from the franchisee point of view, but from the end consumer point of view, you're impacting their health and their life. Adding 20 plus, 25 plus locations a year. What's kind of like next steps for you and your husband? What do you guys want to achieve?
Well, the first one is to reach 100th location. So I'm really tired of being called an emerging brand. So I want to be, what do they call? I'm going to lose my established. I want to be recognized as an established brand. And I've heard like, you kind of get some recognition after that 100th location. So we're 2 away. So I'm so excited about that.
Awesome.
I think we'll hit it by the end of the year.
So let me ask you this, since you know this goes out to a lot of people, so we could do a quick shout out. So we need 2 more people. How do they reach you? If someone's interested, this is probably a good quick segue. If someone is interested, they're hearing this story, they're like, yeah, I'd like to learn more. How can they learn more about the franchise opportunity, and what's the best way to kind of get there?
Cleaneatz.com, and that's, like he said, a Z at Eats, and then at the bottom page it's franchise. We have a whole franchise page, so just fill that out, and then send it in. And We'll have our brand one on the other end, and they reach out, talk to you. And if everything goes, they think you're a good fit, then you come in here for a 2-day interview with us. And we meet you. And, we always say your head and your heart have to align with this brand. And if it doesn't, then it's fine. We're just not right. But if both of those align, then we love to have you join the family.
Awesome. So you guys heard that. Clean Eatz, eats with a z.com, and then franchise at the bottom. So that sounds great. And who knows, maybe you'll be store number 100. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. And then, sorry, to go back to the vision. So obviously, getting this message out, hitting that 100. Tell me more. What's next for you guys?
So then, it's getting, everyone, to reach 100, I know it's not easy, but things change. And so I think another little secret to franchising is you always think that you're bigger than what you are. So if you're at 100, we're operating like we have 150, or you're operating like you have 200, because in the franchise world, I feel like everything moves at a snail's pace, So when you realize that you've outgrown everything, it's almost too late. So if you start preparing yourself like you're operating at a bigger scale, then usually all your systems that you put in, but it's really tightening up our systems, procedures on that. We are opening our corporate headquarters next month. So we have a huge training facility here in Wilmington, North Carolina, along with another cafe that we're opening so that we can train them in that. And then my mission, which we have our convention next Thursday. So we've been doing a fundraiser for September. September is childhood obesity. And, being a farm kid with unhealthy options in that community, getting made for my mom put me in husky boy jeans to go to school in because I was a little chubby kid. And so it's been a mission of mine to bring back the childhood, just have a voice for those kids. And so we did we're in the process of doing our first fundraiser, and we partnered with Camp, I'm going to mess his name up, I better get it right, Pocono in Virginia, or in Pennsylvania, I'm sorry. And it's like a camp where kids can go there and get help for 8 weeks with their nutrition and their exercise. And so that's
awesome.
Huge for us. We're hoping our first goal is to raise $50,000 this, within this 4-week period. So I think we'll come really close to it. So give them back to the community. I just keep making us better, keep making us the gap between our competition just a little bit bigger, getting more brand awareness out there. I don't think you can ever get enough brand awareness in your market. So
right, that's awesome. Those are great initiatives, and I think that the fact that your vision and your mission's very clear, you're gonna find the right people to help keep growing it, which you guys obviously been doing a great job. And what one kind of final thought that comes to mind is Clean Eatz, right? I love the name, but clean could be subjective. So I want to know from you, obviously you have your definition. What is clean to you? What does clean food mean, I guess, for Clean Eatz in general?
Clean to us is it means keeping the food at its natural state. So that's not adding, the butters, the salts to your broccoli to make it taste better. Broccoli does taste better. It's chicken. It's to use real chicken breasts that aren't loaded with sodium in it. The beef products, sauces, no high fructose corn syrup, as minimal ingredients as we possibly can. So, awesome. Clean has been a debatable thing because some people think clean and that means we're vegan, we're vegetarian, we're, all that. We're all organic, that stuff. But our state is, food tastes great without adding all the crap to it. So, or even if you do want to add a little cheese to the, broccoli or the queso, it's in portions and it's balanced. I think another big thing, our mission is that, New Year's resolutions are coming. So everyone's, they're already starting to think about that, but everyone goes so extreme. We cut out everything to where we just set ourselves up for failure. So you can eat normal. You can eat a pizza on the weekends if you want to. It's about being balanced. And so that's really what we try to teach our customers when they come in the door is it's okay. We're only open 6 days. Actually we're open 7 now. but we used to only be open 6 days, and we're like, that's your hall pass to go eat pizza on Sunday, you know? So yeah, it's, if you go so extreme either which way, none of us will ever succeed in that. So
Right. Yeah. I think there's magic there in like just being consistent, like just being as consistent as you can, and like over a long enough period, you start seeing the results. And even just me on the personal side, like I was never that, let's say, big or whatever, but I did realize, and that's why I appreciate like what you're doing is like I don't think people realize like if you would just take like a weighted average of, let's say sleep, fitness, and food, like food is a lot bigger than people think, you know what I mean? And I think that's one thing I've realized, like, and sleep too, actually. Like, yes, gym is super important, don't get me wrong. I know you're a gym person. I've been going to gym quite often. I mean, probably not as much as you, but I appreciate the gym and sweating, and I feel good after. But I think people underestimate food. And it's like, for me, a quick story I just want to share is like, I remember years ago, but I used to go to this boxing gym, and after like, I don't know, 2-3 months, I saw this guy, and he went from having kind of like a big beer belly to like a 6-pack. And I was like, man, and I'll never forget, we're in the locker room, and I told him, I'm like, shit, man, the skip rope and the boxing really, and he's like, that helped, but he goes, all clean eating. I did this in the kitchen, and I was like, it really stuck with me. And I think that's one message maybe to share with our audience for people who are kind of motivated to get in shape and feel their best is like, and maybe you can touch on this, but like, what, how important is the food aspect when thinking about, the trifecta of food, gym, and sleep?
I mean, it's super important. I mean, you could almost skip, I don't want to say you want to skip the working out part, but as long as your diet's in check, and your sleep, like you said, sleep, stress, all that stuff plays such a big thing. But man, I was like, going to that boxing gym, you probably only like burn 400, maybe 600 calories. Well,
Yeah.
if you can consume that in like one meal, right? And we got about 3 or 4 meals that we consume a day, or the snacking in between type of stuff. So you can see how that like blows it out of proportion. And it's so bad to, knowing that you ate something in the morning and you're like, I have all day, I gotta get this off, type of stuff. But man, it's also too like, the mindset, like I know the buffets, COVID kind of wiped out a lot of the buffets, but we always went to go get our money's worth too. And so like, loading up and the bigger portion sizes, we just got way out of reality, with all of that. So, healthy eating, it's like look how much it causes, look how much it causes our body, like the, diabetes, the heart conditions, just your joints. You don't sleep well if you're overweight, so it just ties into so much. And there's a lot of good stuff out there to eat. So I'm not saying that, but it's in moderation. So if you can just get that part balanced, like you can still have your cookies and milk, it just have them every night, while you're on the couch chilling.
I know in 2015 you started the franchise, and then it seems like a couple of years later there was something called Clean Eatz Kitchen. Can you touch on what Clean Eatz Kitchen is?
Yeah, so Clean Eatz Kitchen is our nationwide delivery service. We started this in 2017 for 2 reasons, because we only had 12 locations at that time. So in order to get our franchise owners a great food contracts, we had to become a little bit bigger than what we currently were. And also for national branding, we couldn't act like we were bigger if we couldn't supply to all the states. So the kitchens, we have 4 of them. There's one in Salt Lake City, St. Louis, Missouri, and then 2 here in Wilmington, North Carolina. They are all USDA inspections and FDA. And what makes that kind of cool is, well, not cool. Like we have an inspector in our facilities at all of them every day. Wow. Which is great because it's like you guys who order meals with the little bugs on them, like you should know that they really do come in and inspect your product and make sure you're using the proper ingredients, make sure it's safe for the consumers to use. But yeah, it's really grown. COVID was really good to us. We picked up a lot of Medicare contracts. The Meals on Wheels were paused, so we took over most of North Carolina's Meals on Wheels to the elderly. We have a lot of NBA contracts. We just did the G League last year. We're on the Olympics this year to sponsor, I think, the women's basketball, gymnastics, and soccer, maybe. I think soccer. And then what's really cool, like we're in Wilmington, North Carolina, which is Jacksonville, North Carolina, which is Camp Lejeune, which that's our Marine base. Tons of Marines go out there. They called us up one day and asked us for a meeting on base. And so we were like, okay. And so I had no idea. Like, look, we were two gym rats. I was in booty shorts, crop top. I did not meet their dress code whatsoever. I have been kicked out of the base once time for the dress code, but they let me come back. So anyway, we walk into this long conference table, and this colonel was sitting at the table, and he's like, "We have a problem." And I was like, I thought we were in trouble. And he was like, "We have 50 Marines who are about ready to get discharged." He's like, "They're overweight." He's like, "Do you think your meals can help us?" And I was like, "Of course."
Wow.
Okay. So again, if you're an entrepreneur, say yes and then figure it out after. Yep. Throw your parachute. However, my husband kicked me underneath the table at the time because he's like, "When do you want?" Or I said, "When do you want them delivered?" He's like, "Monday." This was Thursday. And I was like, "Yeah, gotcha." And so I did get a bruise from underneath the table kick. But that was like the best contract ever. So just because you said yes, by the way, all 50 Marines passed with flying colors and none of them got discharged. Wow. And so that created an alliance with us and the Marines super quick. So now we are in every Marine base in the U.S. So if you go on the things, the MCXs, we're all there. And then we just Japan reached out to us probably at the beginning of the year. And our first shipment just arrived last week with 10,000 meals over to Japan. Wow. So that was super cool. We're hoping it works. And then we would go into all of the bases overseas. So kind of cool that your meals were on a shipping container. Heading over.
Yeah, that's a huge milestone. And I think, to your point, there's a lesson there, because I feel the same way, and I'm sure a lot of entrepreneurs do, is like kind of, like you said, jump off and then figure out how the parachute works. And, sometimes it backfires, but most of the time it'll lead to something. And to your point, you took that risk. You're like, "Oh, we'll figure it out." First of all, it's crazy that all 50 passed, like 100% pass, I think speaks to something. So congrats on that. But then the fact that it led to these bigger contracts, and now you're, in most of these bases, so like that's huge. So to our listeners, I think sometimes take that leap of faith and figure it out as you go. It's never going to be perfect, and if you feel like it's perfect, chances are you waited too long.
I was laughing because I just talked to our original lady who helped us. Like if you saw our operations back in 2017, you would totally laugh. Like, again, you figure this out, you wing it until you make it, and you just just put your head down and just keep going. But I was talking to her the other day, and she's like, "You guys still are our number one seller besides alcohol and tobacco." So I feel pretty good about that.
That's amazing. Well, look, that's great. So that's really cool. So cleaneatz.com, and then you got Clean Eatz Kitchen. Clean Eatz Kitchen, you guys do a lot of big contracts, but Clean Eatz Kitchen, just to be clear, can it also be just for like individuals? Like if I wanted to order from Clean Eatz Kitchen, can it? Okay. Yep. Okay, so that's awesome. Delivered. So you kind of got these two arms.
Yep. So I know it sounds like we have a lot, but there's only 98 locations, and that people still don't even know who we are, right? So Clean Eatz Kitchen just lets us get our word out there, and it's great. Those of you guys who are franchising and who are looking for leads, because they usually eat our product, and this was a great marketing tool to get new leads in to buy franchises. Awesome. So I would say probably at least 60% of our leads that come in for franchising have ordered the Clean Eatz Kitchen or saw it somewhere, and that's how they found
awesome.
it. So
that speaks volumes, which is great, because that means like the customer now wants to become a franchise, which speaks to believing in the product, believing in the vision, which I think is a great way to build up that franchise. So kudos to you, because that's super smart, and I think that'll create a stronger network of franchisees.
Yeah, so that's a red flag too. If they haven't ate your meals and they want to buy your franchise, true. It's too easy to get a meal in your hand these days. So we're just like, if you haven't ate our product, can you even believe in it? So that's a big thing for us too.
That's amazing. Well, thank you for sharing that. So cleaneatz.com, again, Eats with a Z, and then Clean Eatz Kitchen as well for delivery. And it's really cool to hear that you're getting these really big contracts. So congrats. I'm excited. We got to celebrate when you get to the 100th location, 2 away. I don't know what you're doing, but I'm there. Count me in. I want to celebrate with you guys. So
You're
that'll be
invited.
a nice milestone. Amazing.
Thank you.
I love it. And then maybe to wrap things up, for people listening who are, restaurant owners, they're figuring it out. They're maybe in their early days. Any kind of words of wisdom, like you've done it, you're still doing it, but you've gone from jumping in with both feet and sleeping at the venue to where you are today. So any kind of looking back, sometimes I think it's easier to connect the dots. So when you look back, any kind of words of wisdom you could maybe share with some of our fellow entrepreneurial listeners.
Oh man, I would have to say, back to kind of like there's no plan B. Like if your heart and your head aligns with this and you have a vision and you have a mission, then there should be nothing that stops you. Like it's the work ethic. I know we've all kind of lost a little bit of that. I feel like it's taking chances. It's being able to lay everything on the line, knowing, because if you can't lay everything on the line for your business, how do you expect someone coming in who wants to buy your franchise to lay it all on the line? Following your gut. I have a really good gut. My gut speaks to me a lot. And I mean, that's a real thing. So trust your gut. Keep your integrity. There's a lot of snakes out there that make it very convenient for you to bend your principles. And that's all you have is your word and your integrity. So make sure those stay intact throughout this process.
I love it. I'm turning that into short. That was a great snippet. So thank you for sharing that. Once again, we're here with Evonne, co-founder at Clean Eatz with a Z.com. And for those interested in hearing the story, we're going to be posting this on all our social channels, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, you name it, LinkedIn too. And for those interested in maybe an opportunity who are into this space, you can go check out cleaneatz.com. Evonne, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today and to tell your story.
Thank you, guys.
Feel free to check out whisk.ai for more resources and schedule a demo with one of our product specialists to see if it's a fit for you.